So we need to diversify jobs, we need to diversify our economy, and the expression you used in your question is right. We need to bring jobs back. There was a time when I was a boy in West Virginia when we had plenty of jobs, and jobs that paid decent wages, living wages for our people, so people could afford the necessities of life, had some money left over for vacations, buy cars, save money for retirement, and put your kids through school. And then the jobs went away for all the reasons that we know. And now we need to bring the jobs back. So the jobs we need to bring back are jobs that fit to West Virginia, that build on the assets of West Virginia, and meet the demand of the 21st century economy. Just like we had steel jobs when the 20th century demanded steel to be produced here in West Virginia, we need to attract jobs that fit to what the world now demands. So part of what we need to do, if we start with building on our resources and our assets and our strengths, is of course make the most of our natural resources. So obviously we need to have as many jobs in coal and oil and gas and renewable energy as we can generate. We should be second to no one in the world of energy in the United States. But we need to go beyond that. And so we need to attract other kinds of jobs. There will continue to be substantial manufacturing jobs in West Virginia as well, and there can be far more. The part where we need to make the most progress is bringing back to West Virginia jobs that derive from the information age, jobs that are about knowledge and data and technology. Not so much necessarily jobs that involve inventing technology, although that would be great too, and the more entrepreneurs we have in our state, the better. But we can create jobs in every part of the state where we have people that amount to anything that involve the organizing, accessing, analyzing, managing of data and information. In Wheeling, where I live, since we brought ORIC to Wheeling, we've together, the people in Wheeling, West Virginia, have created more than 1,500 high-paying, clean, safe jobs on one street, on Main Street in Wheeling, West Virginia. And what we have accomplished there together can be done in every other part of the 1st District and really throughout most of the state of West Virginia. One of the reasons that's possible is that we have a workforce that is second to none in the United States. My law firm, my former law firm, has been here in West Virginia for 16 years now. And we do some of the most sophisticated legal work that is done anywhere in the world. And the people that were necessary to make a lot of that happen are right here in Wheeling, West Virginia. And that's proof positive that our workforce is competitive with the workforce anywhere. The jobs that we have in Wheeling, if they weren't in Wheeling, would otherwise be in New York City or San Francisco or Silicon Valley, but they're in Wheeling, and our people are doing them every bit as well as those jobs would have been done elsewhere. So you mentioned when we were talking before we started that we have 350 jobs. So at ORIC, there are over 2,000 jobs worldwide. 17.5% of those are in Wheeling. But in addition, we brought to Wheeling a company called Williams Lee. Williams Lee, we brought to do part of the work that we do here because there was a subspecialty relating to document creation that they did, that they do better than we could ever have done it. So we brought them in to do it, and they built a business starting with us and then attracting the work from other leading law firms of the world. And so they now have something on the order of 600 people up at the other end of Main Street from us in Wheeling. And I mention that because it's illustrative of how we can do this. We got here, we saw how great it was, we saw that there was a chance to extend what we did to bring Williams Lee in. Williams Lee in turn saw that there was a chance for them then to extend what they did and attract work from other great law firms around the United States, and on it goes. If we got ourselves on that kind of positive reinforcing cycle, we can build on the successes we already have in West Virginia. I don't know that I could have done anything that would prepare me much better for being a member of Congress. So my job at ORIC was to help grow the law firm, to assemble lawyers from all over the world to work together. And I did that. When I started, the firm was just a little over 100 lawyers, and when I finished, we were about 1,100 lawyers. And we had a workforce at 100 lawyers of about 200 people, and when I finished, we had about 2,000 people. So I assembled people who were from different places, all from the East Coast and the West Coast of the United States, from Asia, from Europe, France, Germany, Italy, England, from Japan, from China. Now, I assembled partners, all of whom were very smart, all of whom were sure they knew just how to practice law and serve clients. And my job was to get them all together, organized on a single mission to serve the clients of ORIC, work together, work collaboratively, and get to the outcomes that the clients needed and that the law firm wanted to deliver to the clients. That's kind of what you do in Congress. We have to get people from Nebraska and West Virginia and California and New York, all of whom are very smart and very sure they know what to do, to work together for a common purpose, the purpose of the best interests of the people of the United States. And so I think that experience that I had at ORIC is going to serve me well. Well, the whole question of recreational marijuana is a state law issue. That's for the legislators who've convened once again in Charleston to decide. What Attorney General Sessions did was reverse the organizational mandate within the Department of Justice about how the federal government responds to the various approaches to marijuana in the states. You know, it's interesting how politicians, I'm not a politician, it's interesting how politicians value the laboratory of state government differently depending on what the issue is and how they feel about the underlying issue. I happen to value the laboratory of states and the feature of our constitutional system that enables states to make different decisions. And I think it is right to let the states decide this question. And I also think that the Attorney General probably is not serving the best interest of the United States in taking the limited resources that the Department of Justice has and diverting them from the opioid crisis, which is the greatest crisis that has been faced by this country in my lifetime, to divert those limited resources from that genuine crisis to meddle with what the different states are doing with marijuana, I think is probably not good social policy, not good government policy. First and foremost, we need to devote far more resources to this crisis than we are doing. And those resources need to be devoted from the government of the United States. Having said what I said about laboratories and experimenting, we are at once a nation of states with independent responsibility and opportunity, and we are one country. This opioid crisis affects every citizen in the United States, and it is a matter of the greatest urgency. It affects some states far more than others. The burden of this falls much more heavily on states like West Virginia, Kentucky, New Hampshire, some number of states than some other states, but it affects everyone. So it's time for the government of the United States. This is an excellent sort of issue for the Congress of the United States to resolve, that it's going to step up and deal with this crisis and allocate financial resources that are worthy of addressing this challenge. That's step number one. And we're not talking about a small amount of money. I will have a very concrete plan in due course, but it will start with this: resources that are adequate to address the multiple facets of this opioid crisis. The opioid crisis involves a continuum of issues, from the need to have greater education and training for our people, especially our young people, about the danger of drugs, not just what drugs can do to you, but how drugs can creep into your life, how they can appear in your life from the prescription of painkillers when you have an accident or you have an operation, to the criminals who are preying on our people and trying to sell them drugs. But education for our people, interdiction to stop the flow of drugs, both the legal pharmaceuticals that are being over-distributed and the illegal drugs, and then enforcement, dealing with people who violate the law and our standards in distributing drugs to our people, and then, of course, dealing with addiction, helping our people who are addicted escape the burden of the addiction and staying with them during the rest of their lives. You know, addiction, especially opioid addiction, is not like having pneumonia or the common cold. You don't just get over it and go on about your life. Once you have an addiction to an opioid, it's with you, for most people, forever. And so treatment we need for people is something that must be available to them over a long term. So that's a lot of facets. That's what makes this problem so difficult to deal with. And it means collaborating, organizing, integrating services of different kinds across that spectrum of issues. So I'll be proposing a way to deal with that, a way to lead it, a way to conceive of an effective mission, and a way to deliver the people with the resources to get the job done. I think I can help a lot. This is one of the great assets of the state of West Virginia. It's really one of its shining lights in the entire state. And the member of Congress can see to it that in all the discussions that are had in Washington about which universities should be chosen for grants and other projects, that West Virginia gets its fair share, that the people in Washington, in the government of the United States, have adequate respect for the great things that we can do here in Morgantown. So that's number one. Number two, I was a teacher before I was a lawyer. I believe in education. Education is vital to everyone's opportunity to live the American dream. Not everyone needs to go to college. Not everyone needs to go to a great four-year institution like WVU, but everyone should have the chance to do that if they want to, and they work hard to earn the admission to the university. And I want to make sure, if I'm elected to be the representative of the 1st District, that the resources are made available to WVU to be the best that it can be. And some of that comes from the federal government, and I will be the representative of the 1st District to stand up for WVU when the time is right. My principal concern about taxation is that the current system imposes an unfair burden on the working person. The working person in the United States has really not had much of a pay raise in a long, long time. The cost of living keeps going up, the wages don't. People we know in our state who work for a living have trouble making ends meet. Both spouses, if there are two spouses, have to work, and they have to work more jobs than one. And that's the reality our people face. We don't need to burden them any more than necessary. That's why we need to have, in addition, health care that's affordable and accessible to them. But we certainly need to have a rate of taxation on them that is fair in light of what they earn, with the rates of taxation we impose on business and on the much wealthier people. And so my principal concern is that the rate of taxation on the working person is higher than it should have been. Had I been in the Congress just now, and had I been permitted to participate in the legislation of this tax cut that was just imposed by the Congress, just decided by the Congress. Those are big ifs. But if I had been, I would have reversed the focus of those taxes. I would have seen to it that more of a tax cut was imposed on the working people on their income tax, and less worried about reducing the taxes on the wealthiest of the Americans. What we need to do is get health care for everyone. Everyone. We need to cover pre-existing conditions. And I think our country is pretty comfortable now that that's what we should do. The question is, how do we do it? We got to the Affordable Care Act the way that we did. It was a compromise among competing beliefs about how best to do things, and we adopted a law, and the law has operated reasonably well in many ways. But it has real shortcomings, imperfections. We need to address them. Maybe we can simply get to where we need to get in terms of health care by amending the current law, and I think we should try that. It's in place, the mechanisms are in place, people know how to access it, and if we can do it by amending the current law, that would be the most efficient thing to do. But maybe we can't. And if we have a comprehensible and affordable alternative, we certainly should consider that. But we should do whatever we do focused on delivering affordable, accessible health care to all Americans. We should not be focused on tax cuts for the rich, which was, I think, the principal focus of the so-called American Health Care Act. We should not be doing it because we think too much money is being spent on Medicaid or Medicare. If too much money is being spent on Medicaid or Medicare, we should address that. If we want to give more tax cuts to the wealthy investors, we should address that. But the question you're asking me is about health care. And whatever we do with health care should be an examination of the accessibility and the affordability of health care for our people. And whatever is best to get to that outcome is what we should pursue. Well, there will be a lot more to be said about this as we get through the campaign. I would have voted against the American Health Care Act. There's one stark difference. I would have voted for mine safety, the greater expenditures for mine safety. And there'll be a lot more bills we'll talk about during the course of the campaign where the incumbent and I disagree. I'm running this campaign to deliver common sense to the Congress of the United States. Our Congress is broken. It is not focused on the issues that matter to the people of West Virginia and to the people of the United States. It's focused far too much on the issues that matter to the people who donate to contribute to the campaigns, and far more to issues that are of interest to the political parties and their positioning between themselves than to the interests of the people of the United States and the people of West Virginia. I'm going to go to Congress with one idea in mind: what is best for our people. Not what's best for interest groups, not what is best for those who donate to a campaign, but what is best for our people. Well, I don't know a lot about Kendra's positions on things. She's a very nice person. We have different life experiences. We have different careers, and I think I'll leave that to the voters to be. It'll be pretty easy, I think, for voters to distinguish us. They're going to get plenty of chances to learn about us. One thing I'd like everybody to know is that I'm a family man. I'm a family person. I have 4 children, 3 grandchildren, and I see the issues that will be presented to the Congress if I'm elected. I see those issues through the eyes of someone who cares about the future of the next generations and not just my own. My youngest child is 20, and she's a sophomore in college, so I still am connected to the issues that all of you at WVU are thinking about. And of course, I've got grandchildren who haven't even started school. Actually, one of them has started school. So that's number one. Number two, I'm a West Virginian, and I grew up here in West Virginia. My life story has had some interesting adventures in it, and I've lived a lot of places. But I grew up here. I learned to read here. I formed my values in the Northern Panhandle, and I am an example of what we can do as West Virginians. My life has been blessed. I've had a wonderful career. I've been able to do a lot of very interesting things in a lot of interesting places. And it was all enabled by the education I got here in West Virginia. And that's something I'm very proud of. And it's something that makes me, now that I've come home, want to give back to my state. And that includes giving back to WVU just in the way that you were asking me about earlier, but it includes more than that. And that's what really motivates me. I want the young people of West Virginia to have the same opportunities that I had when I was a young person in West Virginia. And right now, they don't, because we don't have the jobs we once had in West Virginia. And I want to help make that better. And it really is what drives me to run. So what happened to me was this. I was looking for a place to put the center that's now in Wheeling. And we looked all over the continental United States. I was rooting for West Virginia because this is where my roots are. But we were going to pick the very best place. And along the way, I was in Wheeling, and one evening, the people who were doing economic development, Mayor Nick Sparshane and Don Rigby and Bill Wilmoth, were showing me Wheeling. And as they did, I was reconnected to my roots. And it was a very emotional thing that I didn't really understand that evening what was happening. I knew I liked it. This looked like a great place to put our facility. This would be a great place for people who work for our firm to live. But what really was happening to me is I was reconnecting to my roots. And a lot of why I came back personally to West Virginia is just an emotional part of my humanity. This is where I belong. And so I came home. I guess the last thing I would say is this. I am as serious as I can be about the issues we've been talking about. Washington needs to work better, work more effectively for our people. We deserve a better government. We deserve a government more focused on the issues that really matter to our people and is principled and is just. And if I'm elected to Congress, I will go to Congress and I will work every day to achieve the goals and aspirations of the American people and the people of the 1st District of West Virginia. And I will work as hard at that as I've ever worked at anything in my life.